Hello and welcome to What Are Metro Mayors Good For? I'm Jill Morris, creator and founder of the fabulous Devo agency, proud devolutionist and northerner. The devolution revolution is happening, but what does it really mean for your back pockets and why does it even matter? Our podcast series will hear from mayors, political and thought leaders who will try to shed some light on why we should be more excited or even care about devolution and what it can do for you. If I'm right, and devolution is the agency of change, we all need to understand a lot more about what Metro Mayors are for and what these powerful beasts actually do. To kick off our new podcast series, I talked to one of these powerful beasts, the mighty Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Mayor, Paul Bristow, and asked, amongst other things, the big question: what are Metro Mayors good for? Congratulations, Paul. I'm here with at Conservative Party conference with Mayor Bristow. I've known you a little while longer than that in terms of what your other life.
Yeah, you do.
You have been a member of Parliament, and now you're a mayor. So what we're here to talk about today is to try and help explain what mayors are good for, because, as you know, I'm passionate about devolution and have been for a while. Indeed, back in the John Prescott days, we were out there. That failed, again, largely because I thought it was bureaucratic. There were some good things that came from that. One might argue in terms of RDA, but that collectivism around regeneration and helping areas with their economic growth. George Osborne, again, big ambition, northern powerhouse. Arguably, we are going to have a fully devolved north very soon, or sooner than anywhere else. And within that, that's a big, big power base. What worries me is that people are voting for mayors, not really understanding what they are voting for.
No.
So they're not all Labour and they're not all Conservatives, but we are going to get sort of that pressure from reform. My view, rightly or wrongly, if people knew what mayors were for, and the relationship between local, regional and national, there would be a different or a higher engagement in devolution or the power of devolution, because economic growth and regeneration are all good things, and it means that it reflects the geography and the needs of that particular area. The bill, the devolution, English devolution and community empowerment bill, is good, and I welcome it, but there are bits missing in it from my point of view, and I worry when you have at last a joined up north and eventually maybe a joined up east of England, what that actually looks like, because some of the old issues will come back, and the relationship and tensions between the local parliament, national and regional is quite interesting. You can see that certainly was playing out largely last week at the Labour Party conference with the King of the North concept, which started off very at the early onset of Mayor Burnham being elected. But those things, we have to, I think, really think about that. So you, in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, will have a unique perspective on what the geography, or your particular geography and your mayoralty means to people and what you can do. I want you to explain to me what you said on the doorstep and what you thought made a difference to the people and why were they voting.
Okay, so I think it's interesting when you look at those parts of the country that have mayors where the mayor has been considered to be a success. So you mentioned the King of the North, you talked about Andy Burnham. We can look equally at Ben Houchen in Tees Valley, or prior to the mayoral election where he lost, Andy Street in the West Midlands. These three have become sort of national figures, and there were significant figures in their own right. One could argue that Ollie Coppard is trying to do the same in South Yorkshire. Tracy Babin's trying to do the same as well. Now, look, why does that matter? Because mayors, yes, can become champions for their area, that king of the north and everything else. But the reason that their geography is significant, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, short of 1 million people, Andy Burnham, Greater Manchester, it's obviously significant. Same with the West Midlands, is that you can unlock those barriers to growth. That's what a mayor is there to do. A mayor is there to drive growth and to fly the flag for their region. So whether it comes to skills, whether it comes to planning, whether it comes to housing, whether it comes to transport, whether it comes to any of the things that they have responsibility for, it should, in my mind, to be a success, align it around growth. Because growth is what is the engine that makes us all, I suppose, healthier, wealthier and happier. Andy Burnham boasts that devolution has worked in Manchester and has delivered growth of, I think, 3% a year prior to the pandemic. In Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, that growth was at 2.8% a year. And do you know something? That was probably very little to do with the combined authority or the mayor. Now, what I'm suggesting is if we have a mayor who's behind growth, understands the growth, understands that everything we have responsibility for should be around growth, we can create the fastest growing economy of anywhere in the UK. That's my ambition. But look, every mayor across the country will be, I would hope, focusing their efforts around growth because it's good for the rest of the UK economy. Yeah,
it is good for the economy, but my worry is about the narrative that goes with it on the doorstep and people voting, for example, for reform.
Yeah.
And obviously voting for reform has become a big what we're going to do about reform, and the focus and the mood is very much around that. But I'd be interested really in your view on that, because although Andy Burnham is probably the most high profile mayor,
perhaps other than Sadiq Khan.
Yeah, and Sadiq Khan, of course. And I think what I'm trying to say is that doesn't translate when it comes to a local government. You more or less get 37% turnout. So people aren't voting for the mayor.
I'd be interested to know.
Way.
I mean, what was the turnout in Greater Manchester?
37%.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, I think being mayor
and
of
that
an
was
area,
one of the highest.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I actually think being a mayor of an area gives you the opportunity to be a high profile figure, more so than perhaps an MP. So I lost Peterborough by 118, and look, I still lost. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that was a brilliant result, but my majority was only 1,800, and I would suggest because the Conservatives was so unpopular, a lot of those votes I received, yes, was because I was the Conservative Party candidate, but were also personal votes too.
Yeah.
And I think that's so much more difficult to achieve in a national election to get lots of personal votes, because people at the same time are voting for who they want to be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
When you're voting on who you want to become the mayor, yes, there'll be lots of people who will vote Conservative because they're Conservatives and will vote Conservative. I think lots of people voted because for the person too, especially in places like the Tees Valley, where it's a traditional Labour area. Ben Houchen wins all the time, but similarly in Manchester, because it was overwhelmingly. Yes, it's a Labour area, but Andy Burnham won overwhelmingly, above and beyond what the Labour Party would traditionally get in its heartland. So I guess what I'm trying to say is being a mayor allows you to get a personal profile and a personal vote. And it's about the art of politics, yes, about how you kind of promote yourself, but also it's about how you promote your region for growth.
Yeah.
You promote your region. If you do that well, I think you'll be rewarded at the ballot box.
I think the thing that's worked well for Ben, Andy, and Andy, in all of those areas now, because the power and the money is coming through, and also integrated settlement, and things are moving on.
Yeah.
My view is that devolution is the agency of change that the country is crying out for, and the way you're going to get more money in your pockets is the growth, because people are going to feel it. But pointing at buses, the B network here, really thinking differently to national policy is quite interesting. And I think where I perceive attention, I'm very interested in, from your point of view, having lost your seat to a Labour Andrew Pakes MP, and now becoming, in many ways, you are more powerful than Andrew Pakes, don't tell him I said that, but
No.
the truth is...
He'll be watching this, don't worry.
The truth is, that is exactly right. You have far more power to really help. So the relationship between MPs and their mayors and respective mayors, I think is really important.
Yeah.
But I think there's a widening gap between Parliament, potentially, of both actually not understanding the other very well, and how what's good for one is good for the other. So the politics, especially with the Labour Conservative situation there, where actually we could actually sort of say, yeah, this is good for your 16-year-old because they can get better education.
Well, just ignoring Peterborough for a second, because there is a bit of a challenge with Andrew. I'm sure he'll be watching this.
Yeah. He didn't do this, but he did do a thing on skills.
Yeah.
I'm
sure he'll be watching this.
Yeah.
And he invited me for a pint about sort of 4 months ago, and I'm still waiting for the text. But anyway.
Yeah.
But look, I have a very, very strong relationship with almost every other MP in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, because we have to work beyond politics. And I've got a strong relationship with a lot of the council leaders who, were not horrified that I won, because I think they thought the person who came second would be even worse. But there are Liberal Democrats and there are Labour council leaders that we have to work together. And that is what we're doing, because we have to understand that it's interesting, actually. There are parts of Cambridge, let me give you an example, where they've got a Green councillor, there's a Labour run the city, the Liberal Democrats run the county, and they've got a Conservative mayor. It's an extraordinary situation, but politics, you put that to one side and you all focus around what you can agree with. And the common challenges that we have in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough are, how do we enhance and lean into the growth that Cambridge has so ably offered over the last decade or so. Cambridge is the most intense science and technology cluster in the world, and we need to lean into that and enhance Cambridge, because that will allow that growth that I've just been talked about. I think almost everyone would agree with that. Okay, and the second is, how do we spread that growth into the north of our county and unleash the potential of Peterborough, which is just a grain of sand that could turn into a diamond because of its location. It's unique. You can get to London in 45 minutes. It's on the A1. But also in the Fens, we've got the best agricultural land in the country, and that means so much for agri-tech, advanced manufacturing. Look, it's all there for everyone to see, and that's why the ambition there is to create the fastest growing economy. But that will only happen if we work together. And look, you all know as well as our two chillers that lobbying 101 is you must show how the government can achieve their objectives by doing what you want them to do. Like the government, like the Labour government, this Conservative mayor wants to see growth. This Conservative mayor wants to see new homes. This Conservative mayor wants to see better infrastructure and better transport infrastructure. This Conservative mayor wants to see their population reskilling and upskilling. These are all the government's objectives too. And so our growth plan is ambitious. I'm talking to ministers all the time. I'm going to lean into this growth agenda in Cambridge. And guess what will happen, fingers crossed? We'll also get what we want in Cambridgeshire, which are those transport infrastructure, making us all healthier, wealthier and happier.
And obviously what's good for Cambridge and Peterborough is good for the economy, the wider economy, but also the east of England. And obviously there's devolution proposals there. Do you ever see yourself in time to come to be the king of the east of England?
Well, I'm very jealous. I'm very jealous of this collaboration in the north. They called it, was it Team North, didn't they?
Yeah, the Great North.
The Great North, sorry, forgive me.
But we're not allowed to use that because it's the Great North Front. It's big branding issues.
Really? Can they not use that?
Oh no, nobody else can move it unless use it unless it is the Great North. Anyway, that's another thing.
Anyway, so okay, that's interesting. But I saw that. I was very jealous of Steve Rotherham, who I like as well.
Yeah,
Andy
it's hard not to like. I think.
Very nice. And even Ben Houcher was just stood there with them, working together. And it just shows you that can happen. And I was very jealous, and because in the east it's just me. But we've got Norfolk and Suffolk coming.
Yeah.
We've got
what's happening in Essex
coming. And these are going to be a bit like Lincolnshire and the East Riding, who both elected Reform mayors, by the way, and I get on, perfectly well with Andrea, and I think Luke's a fine man, and I get on very well with him.
Yeah.
Now, whoever wins in Norfolk and Suffolk, and I'm confident the Conservatives can win, and I'm confident the Conservatives can win in Essex. But if that does not happen, and whoever wins, whether it's any other party, we will work together for the east of England. And look, there is an almost leadership role, I guess, for me, not me as a mayor, because I only have been a mayor for a year, but at least my organisation will, fingers crossed, have established status by then. We will have that institutional memory of what's happened and knowing how to do this. And unfortunately, Norfolk and Suffolk and Essex won't have that. So look, there will be a leadership role, I think, for our combined authority, but also working together, so we can get that Team East, if you like, or the Great East, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the Great East.
And there's also a Great Eastern Run. Yeah. And guess what's happening on October the 12th? A week today.
You're running.
I'm running it. So
run fast.
Well, if you can see a.
Have you done some?
I have. You see a slightly overweight man in his mid-40s, sweating around.
Don't overdo it. That's what I'm saying. So. Similarly, when I spoke to Helen Godwin, again, I sort of said the issues of the past, of really the devolution hasn't worked as well. And did she ever foresee, because she's not, I said, you're not really the mayor for the West of England, because the West of England has many geographical, political challenges, which whether it's Cornwall or wherever you are. And she couldn't see how far that was actually going to expand, and because she said it's quite lonely being down on your own. So I think there is a bigger sell.
And I quite like being on my own in a funny sort of way. I'm looking for
unique.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to mayors in Norfolk and Suffolk, and I'm looking forward to mayors in Essex. But what I quite like about this job, and it'll be interesting to know what some of the other mayors say, that the party leaves me alone. I've got no whips. I can say what I want.
You can do things differently,
and ultimately do things differently. That you've nailed it, Jill. Because it's not just about saying what you want or being left alone. It's actually using the powers you've got to actually think about the challenges that your area has, and then changing or amending things for the area. So skills, for example. Okay, so skills. I think one of the big disappointments actually of the devolution bill is that we didn't go far enough on skills. I would love to have had more power over skills, but
that higher education.
That's right. But what we do have. So, for example, there's a town called Chatteris, which is in the Fens. And it's even though I represented Peterborough, I grew up in a small fen town which is about a few miles just outside Peterborough called Whittlesea. But then it goes on for miles and miles and miles. The Fens as an area. And there's one town called Chatteris, which is, it's 20 or so miles or whatever it is from Peterborough, so it's kind of on its own out there. And there's a advanced manufacturing company called Metalcraft there. They are a nuclear manufacturing company out there, but they struggle to attract the young people they needed, the skills that they needed in order to try and have that workforce. So do you know what they did? They set up their own sort of FE
education college, sort of like training
on site. Partnering with West Suffolk College.
Brilliant.
It's been amazing.
And
the CPCA, before my time, but the CPCA, the combined authority, they helped fund that and shape that. And that's what they can do. When I went there, I thought, we should be doing this in every single one of our fen towns. I don't just want to have one and go, job done. I want one in Wisbech, I want one in March, I want one in St Neots, I want one in all of our towns. Because it gives young people, they don't have to travel outside their young town to get a good quality apprenticeship or a good quality FE education.
So you need to create your USP, the distinction, because you're not all the same. The whole point of devolution is we're sitting in the Walton bus here in Liverpool City region. They're very different needs, but equally the same needs. So we're all in favour of greater opportunities, but they have different USPs. So what Steve Rotherham was trying to do on tidal power, for example, maybe his USP, obviously big tourism, the idea of having tourism tax and more power, more money, fiscal devolution. Where are you on that?
Well, look, I'm very interested in exploring any opportunity where we can get a revenue stream, whether that is in terms of fiscal devolution, whether that's business rates, retention, whether that's land gain, or whether that may be some element of tourist revenue. And do you know what I'll do against that? I will borrow against that. and I will use the money to build, okay, and to build the infrastructure that is needed in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. I can get from Peterborough to London in 45 minutes. I can get from Cambridge to London in a similar sort of time. Take me 55 minutes to get from Peterborough to Cambridge by train. That's not good enough. Okay? And gone are the days where I'm just going to turn up with a begging bowl, waiting for the government to fund, even though it's got a BCE of 4.8, but waiting to fund that Ely area capacity enhancement. Very boring, I know. But it will allow us to connect the two great cities, three if you include Ely, our three great cities, with much faster trains. Gone are the time that I'm going to wait for the government to fund it. I'm going to go and do it myself.
Yeah, and you sort of can, but this goes back to my point.
With rail devolution.
And that's a really interesting area, because that connectivity point, that's what I do sort of in the north. I'm trying to do the same with devolution east, devolution southeast, and maybe Midlands and whatever, just to bring those parties together to sort of say, how do we communicate, how do we get growth, how do we actually bring that together? Because I was listening to Richard Holden earlier at a session, and he said, do you know how long it takes to get from the airport, Manchester Airport, to the conference centre today? And I said, yes, I do. If you're lucky, 40 minutes, but that's not the issue. The issue is the people that the train I catch, it's 1 hour. And if you miss that one, the next train might be 2 hours, because it doesn't stop at a particular station, because it's only one route up to Gloucester. That's cities all across the north, south, whatever, relying on that one Manchester Airport to get from A to B, and it's completely unreliable.
Well, I'm not going to tell you about the train that I got today.
Let's have more stories about our journeys.
And we've been stood the entire way. I mean, there was, bless them, there's an elderly couple in my wife and I's seat, and there's no way I was going to turf them out. I let them have it. It was a packed train, but it didn't mean I had to kind of stand for 2.5 hours.
So how long did it take you to get here?
Oh, 2.5 hours. But anyway, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point of my story is, look, our infrastructure outside of perhaps London and the southeast and a few isolated spots in the north is poor.
Yeah.
Right? And we look at something like Crossrail, and everyone said, it was over budget, it was over time, and all that stuff. Maybe it was. But is anyone suggesting that we shouldn't have built it now? No, it's there. And look, transport and infrastructure unlock opportunities for people.
Yeah.
I just talked to you about Peterborough and Cambridge, okay? It's not just the fact it takes 55 minutes. It's also the fact, as you quite rightly said, it's the frequency of services. If we could have it once every half an hour, and guess what? It can go on late at night. Guess what might happen? People might live in Peterborough, okay, where you can get instead of being a 2-bedroom flat in Cambridge for $500,000, you can get a family home in Peterborough for $500,000. And guess what? They may travel to Cambridge, they may stay for a pint or a meal, and it'll be good for the nighttime economy, and they can travel back, not worrying about the fact that they could end up getting stranded in the middle of Cambridge. That would be transformative for Cambridge and Peterborough.
We held a session in Parliament to try and join up the connectivity point from the various APPGs, regional APPGs, other pan-northern groups, but bringing transport to the north, bringing Hugh Merriman, the former rail minister, and who's now doing the Live Man, is chair of the board, and obviously 200 years since Stephenson's rocket. And my argument is that I think probably had better train service in the north 200 years ago, Queen Victoria's reign, than we do today.
It's extraordinary.
And Jim O'Neill, who I talked to a lot, also, that whole thing of having Elizabeth Line for the north, the Northern Powerhouse Rail, is a no-brainer. It's not political. It's like and we still didn't get the announcement.
And here's the other thing as well. There were lots of people saying to me, Paul, aren't you upset that now you're a Conservative mayor in the East, that you're not getting the same sort of attention, perhaps, as these northern mayors?
Well, you will do when you're King of the East of England.
Well, maybe if I'm the King of the East of England. But the problem is, no, I'm not, because I'm not going to be one of those mayors who sits there and says, well, just because all they're doing is just funding the north, and we need capital investment. In all of these places. You borrow as a government for capital investment. The problem with this government, if we're going to be political for a second, and I'm not...
1 second.
It is 1 second. Is that we seem to be borrowing more and more and more, but for revenue spend, for spend on welfare or for whatever it's on, okay? That's madness. If you're going to borrow, you should borrow for capital funding, and borrow big as well. But you'll get a return on that. borrow for revenue. That's just madness.
And the big thing, you need investors, but you need the skills.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got the skills, like your example, what are we? Things are moving really fast,
They are.
and really need to think about your economy, what will make it grow, and that is the opportunity that the mayor has, is to knock heads together, and all of those things.
Convene.
Convene, the convening powers, and that's what they can do, because that's what you're good at. Your issues around, you've got these great universities, but high house prices on the one hand, the closeness to London. Certainly when I created the East of England APPG originally, it was all like, well, am I in the East of England? Or am I not in the East of England? So it's always very sort of elective. And then you had James Palmer, and then you had Nick as well previously. So I do think there's more potential to be had, but that collaboration is really, really key. I'm just going to find one last question.
No
One last question, so which I've been asking various people, is, given the devolution perhaps has failed or whatever, the bill I don't think is necessarily all there, but I think it will be. I mean, again, the concept of devolution, going back to the GLA, was very much that we didn't have that much to start off with, but it's grown and it will continue to grow. So given there's sort of maybe tensions between the local, local government's for, and delivery, and all of those things, in 10 years' time, do you think, when we're sitting here in the Walton bus,
I'll be worried, I'll be 56 then.
you will be saying it's a success?
Okay, so when I argue devolution's failed in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, I would argue the fact that I can sit around in the diverse political nature of Cambridgeshire and we can all get on is a success. So I wouldn't say devolution in itself has failed. I would argue that we haven't perhaps grasped the opportunity of devolution in the way. I think James had lots of really interesting ideas. James Palmer, I think he was
really
forward-thinking,
nice
really, really nice man, very, very forward-thinking. Perhaps he didn't sell those ideas in the way that I think they should have been sold. Nick, okay, so he perhaps wasn't ever expecting to win, but I don't think he's a bad person. I think he clearly was very passionate about buses, and at least bus franchising will be his legacy. We've got to do better than both of those things. And for me, it's about selling the concept of economic growth and its contribution to the entire country. And I think everybody, whether you're a Labour council leader in Peterborough, or whether you're a Liberal Democrat county council leader in the south of Cambridge, or a Conservative in Fenland, we can all agree that that's what we need to do. We need to sell our area, hunt as a pack, okay, and work together. And I think, as long as you remember the two rules, be nice, rule number one. Rule number two is remember rule number one. As long as you remember those two rules, I think we can work together, hunt as a pack. And in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, our time is now. We're only just beginning.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. It's been an honour and a privilege to have you in the Walton bus, and
it's been a pleasure to be here.
to talk about my favourite subject, devolution. There are others as well, but that's probably the main thing. So I do hope that you're right, that it will be a success and we'll move forward. I think there are issues that the bill will in time, teeter out. But yeah. Anyway, I hope everybody's enjoyed that, and very pleased to see you, and good luck.
Thanks,
and
Jill.
Admire your ambition. And that is what Paul Bristow thinks around what mayors are for.
There we go. Growth, growth, growth.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and also thanks to the brilliant Mayor Bristow for being such a spectacular first guest on our podcast. Thanks have to go to City and Guilds and the Walton Youth Community Project, and especially Darren for helping us record aboard their fabulous youth bus. Please sign up and don't miss our next podcast with Helen Godwin, the West of England Mayor, and Oliver Cockard, the South Yorkshire Mayor. Please stay in touch and follow me and Devo Agency on LinkedIn, Instagram. You can also catch up with a full video version of the podcast on our YouTube at Devo Agency. Bye for now.